Hello to whoever may be viewing this. My name is Marcel de Armas, and today I will be presenting my final capstone project. It is on the anti-Slavic sentiment that exists in the United States and Western Europe. And as a quick disclaimer, I do wish to put out there that I am in no way, shape, or form discrediting or in any way downplaying the other forms of racism and discrimination that exist in the world. I just wish to talk about this one because it is so often ignored. Let us begin. When we talk about racism in the modern day, most people will think of discrimination between people of different skin color. However, there is another kind of racism that exists within the idea of whiteness. My project explores how anti-Slavic sentiment formed in Europe, how it shaped views on immigration in the United States, and why it still matters to this day. My main argument is that anti-Slavic discrimination, though it is often ignored, continues to affect social attitudes and how people of Slavic heritage are seen to this day. Anti-Slavic ideas really began to take shape during the late 19th century, especially in countries like Germany and Austria. According to linguist Sylvia Jaworska, early nationalist writers describe Slavs as emotional, primitive, and dangerous. She calls this kind of language a prelude to Nazi ideology. And these stereotypes weren't just insults, they built a racial hierarchy that put Germanic and Aryan people on top, with Slavic people near the bottom. This same language helped justify the conquest and forced labor of Slavs during Hitler's reign of Nazi Germany. As we can see here in the example, der Untermensch literally means subhuman, as it shows a very unflattering photo of Slavic people and what they look like. It's absolutely disgusting. Uh, After some time, the Nazis eventually moved from theory to practice, as historian John Conley puts it. At first, Nazis debated whether Slavs were racially close enough to the Aryans to be absorbed into Germany and be allowed to be citizens of Nazi Germany. But by the time that World War II broke out, that question was settled with the deaths and enslavement of millions of Polish and Russian citizens. Meanwhile, in the United States, Slavic immigrants faced similar versions of racism, not to the extent of Nazi Germany, of course, but it wasn't far better. During the time During this time, immigration officials ranked the races of Europe, putting Slavs below their Western counterparts. Sociologist Lisa Wade calls this in-between whiteness, where Slavic immigrants were legally white but were socially excluded at the same time. They were often portrayed as poor and dirty and unfit for democracy. Over time, many were forced to assimilate by hiding accents and cultural traditions and just over time completely forgetting where they came from. Now, after World War II, open racism was becoming less acceptable, but old biases still remained. During the Cold War especially, hostilities toward the Soviet Union fueled a lot of cultural stereotypes against Slavic people. As Jay Walling writes, Russophobia became a way to express Western superiority as it painted the East as trapped in the past. Movies and other forms of media were often portraying Russians as ruthless and humorless, while Eastern Europe became a symbol of poverty and just dictatorship rule. Today, anti-Slavic bias survives in the shape of online people. The writers of illiberalism.org describe anti-Eastern European racism, which is the ongoing view that Eastern Europe is backward or corrupt. News coverage often reduces Eastern European migrants to cheap workers or even criminals. Even in entertainment, accents and jokes about drinking or aggression keep these stereotypes alive and well. And though they may seem harmless, they do reinforce an old power divide between the civilized and uncivilized Europe. One of the most famous examples of this type of stereotypes is the main villain from Rocky 3, who is named Draco, seen in the picture here. Draco was a super soldier created by the Russian government to take down the American boxer Rocky. He follows pretty much every Russian stereotype in the book. He's tall, he's mean, he's bad, just stereotypes galore, honestly. This is the easiest way I can describe it. Today, anti-Slavic bias survives online. Excuse me. Understanding anti-Slavic prejudice challenges the idea that whiteness is an identity that is set in stone. It reminds us that racial and cultural hierarchies are created in order to establish power among those who view themselves as elites. For Slavic Americans and Europeans today, confronting this history can strengthen the cultural acceptance and awareness. And for everyone, it expands our view of racism to include forms that are often invisible or even just not seen at all. To summarize, 1. Anti-Slavic imagery began as nationalistic propaganda in the 19th century. 2. It justified violence and exclusion under Nazi rule in Germany. And 3. It survived throughout the Cold War and continues today in subtle ways. By reviewing this history, we see that racism is not just about an easy-to-see difference between people. It's about who has the power to tell where a person does or does not belong. Looking back at this part of history helps build a more inclusive understanding of identity, in not only Europe and the United States, but in the world as a whole. These are my sources. I thank you for your time.